We're going to talk a little bit about AI literacy, something that is very challenging. It's never the technical stuff. It's always the squishy things that make it difficult. So we'll give some quick introductions of our panelists, and then we'll have our discussion. We'll take some Q&A, and then talk a little bit about the future. And at the end, we have an AI-generated song to play for you. I think you've already heard my introduction. I'm with a company called Wavical Data Solutions. I'm also at University of Georgia, where are we having dogs in the house? Go dogs. Oh, we got a couple. Okay, good. Oh, yeah, well, I'm on the board at Georgia Tech, too, so I'm involved in all the schools, really. I also am involved in Technology Association of Georgia. I have a podcast called Tag Data Talk, if you want to take a listen to it. It has real Southern accents in there. People that I interview, we talk about trends, tools, technique, and talent related to data science and AI. Wes, can you give a quick introduction, please, sir?
Sure. My background is actually originally in aerospace engineering. I have a PhD in aerospace engineering with focus on guidance, navigation, control. I used to do GNC, writing navigation system, for Center for Space Research and NASA Jet Propulsion Lab. And then 20 plus years ago, I decided all this math that I know, I can apply to the business. So I moved actually to become more of a data scientist, did the airline industry, working at Sabre and Delta Airlines, then moved to advertising media marketing with Turner and Time Warner, did CPG and retail with Catalina Marketing, and did private equity even, and I continue to consulting on anything. Literally, I call it from BI to AI, is a good way to summarize it across the whole spectrum.
Yep, and can you hold up that book you have in your lap there?
I was going to use that DM. Yeah, and most recently, thank you. I got reached out by Forbes, I don't know, what was it, roughly 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, to say, hey, we hear you have different perspective on data from friends we talked with. So I ended up writing a book about data independence, I call it, reclaiming privacy in an era of evolving tech. Which really brings the point that we lost our freedom, I think, in my mind, because we don't have really any privacy. I know the folks that were here on stage earlier, thank you so much for not flying the drone over my backyard, but maybe that's the last safe place, maybe, where no one is monitoring me, but it doesn't really matter much, because my phone is next to me, so I'm monitored 24/7. But it really is not a book to say, big companies and they're doing this and they're evil. I'm an engineer still and a solutionizer at heart. So I do propose a new framework on perhaps how we can solve all of this where people are in control of their data and really exercise what I call their data vote to decide how their data is used. So happy to talk to you about that maybe after the panel. If you wish, I'm going to be around all day. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Robert.
Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? Good? Oh, well, 5 people are doing good. Everybody else is, how's everybody doing?
Very
amazing. All right, good, good. So how many of you do not have a technical background? Raise your hand. Okay. And how many of you do have a technical background? And how many of you just don't like raising your hand in crowds? Okay. So the people that do not have a technical background, I want you to do me a favor. And stop telling people that you don't have a technical background, because that is counter from what you're trying to achieve. So what you're trying to achieve is an understanding of technology. So you want to encourage conversations about technology. So lean into it. If you don't know something, then lean into it. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I was at lunch and somebody talked about DeepSeek. And they're like, oh yeah, everybody knows about DeepSeek. I was like, well, I don't. Please tell me about it. And that gave me the information that I needed, and now I can talk about DeepSeek with people. So lean into your desire to continue to learn. So let me introduce myself. My name's Dr. Robert Joseph. I have a bachelor's and master's degree from MIT in electrical engineering. I went on and got a master's degree and a PhD in computer science with a minor in AI when AI was almost cool. I went on to work at various companies, worked at Stanley Black & Decker as a senior data scientist, and then became a director in Stanley Black & Decker, so doing manufacturing stuff. I now am the co-founder of a company called Team Mindshift, and we're about transformational talent and workforce development. And that's really teaching hard skills, soft skills, and wellness all in one, because we believe in training the whole person for the job and not just skills-based. I also have a patent for a DJ system, and the most proudest moment is being the father of 2 boys who are now they're men now, 21 and 22.
Excellent, thank you. He's also a comedian. Can you sense that stage presence? Like literally, he's a comedian. So let's start off our conversation with, we talk about AI literacy, and we hear that term all the time, and we don't want it to just go off your back like it's a buzzword. So before we jump in too deeply, let's just talk about what do we mean when we say AI literacy? Because we know we want to be AI literate, but what does that really mean to us?
I mean, with any new technology, what does it really mean to us? Well, first we need to understand what is AI. And when I go around, I am so surprised in companies that think that just AI, just since ChatGPT got announced, which is not true. Generative AI or something a la ChatGPT is the latest capability of AI within text, voice, and image type, if you want to call it data. AI has been with us for a long, long time, but what I'm trying to say with this example is that I'm shocked. There's a deep misunderstanding of what it is. So the first thing that I feel that companies need to do is let's understand what it is. Everyone should be, versed of what it means, and it doesn't have to be technical. An executive needs to understand the basic concepts, and the technical person needs to have not only obviously the basic concept, but the technical aspects of it. So the first thing is this education thing that I'm going around and finding, I have to talk about this and demystify this everywhere.
So just AI in general, you mean? Like forget literacy, let's at least figure out what is AI.
Yeah.
And if I'm hearing you right, from your observation, you're noticing that some companies are saying, well, we're using LLMs, we're using ChatGPT, we must be using AI, and that's it.
Yeah, but also we've never done AI, and then you look at them, well, have you used machine learning? Well, that's one other capability of AI. So you're doing personalization for advertising, that's actually AI. Now, generative AI may add another dimension of data, which may make it hyper-personalization, but you've been doing AI. I never used AI, and I'm an airline. Do you have revenue management? You're doing forecasting and optimization. That's different kinds of automation. Now, this one is more interesting, and people are more, how do you say, they look at it with an awe, is because everyone can interact with that system. Other versions of AI has been pretty much for data scientists, I'm going to call it. My mom played with ChatGPT, and she likes it, and she can even do a few things herself. But the point is, it's that the generative AI capability opened the door more, I would say, to everyone to be interact, rather than historical other AI capability typically have been the data scientists, the data engineers, people in that background that could really dig into it.
Yeah. So first, before understanding AI literacy, you have to really understand what is AI. And right now, people are equating it to something like a ChatGPT. Yes. It kind of reminds me of when the term analytics came out. And I was raised decision sciences. Like I graduated decision sciences with 5 other people in 1991, and nobody knew what that was. But when analytics term came out, business intelligence was kind of the first thing on the street, yep, if you will. And so now sometimes people, I think about analytics as only business intelligence. And so you're saying in the same way, when people think about AI, now they just go straight to like, oh, that's ChatGPT.
Yes.
Not that it's one part of it. So first of all, you need to kind of take stock and broaden your view of like what really is even AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Good advice.
And I would like to add to that. I think AI literacy is the ability to be comfortable with being able to discuss AI. Because as we all know, AI is changing at such a fast rate. And you're not going to know everything. So if you're talking with somebody that doesn't know something, feel free to, or ask them, hey, do you want to talk more about it? Do you want to have an in-depth conversation about it? But if you're someplace and you don't know something, then reach out and ask about it. Be curious about it. And as I say, lean into it. Because there is so much movement around. I find that I get a lot of information just talking with friends. And they bring something up, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. Tell me more. Because you have, at least in some instances, somebody that knows it, well, you'll have somebody that knows it better than you. So why not lean into it and gain that information? And so I think of AI literacy as just feeling comfortable with being able to talk about AI. And when you talk about AI, it has so many dimensions to it. You know, one dimension is the technology, but another dimension is how you use it. And when we talk about ChatGPT and large language models, those are, the reason that they're so popular is, as Wes said, people are able to use that and be effective with it right away. Yeah. So that's one level. But then you look at your company and saying, okay, now how can I use that technology in a process where I am using other people in that process? And that gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more, you know, you've got to understand a little bit more. And then there's just the whole deep learning, machine learning, data analytics, visualization, all of those things. And so you want to just understand conceptually what's going on and just have conversations.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you, you would define AI literacy as the ability to have conversations around AI in a comfortable manner. Mm-hmm. One thing that neither of y'all said is you have to, see, I said y'all, I'm bringing that Southern out, aren't I? One thing neither of you said was you have to know every single detail about AI in order to be AI literate. So talk about that a little bit.
We can't all be like you.
Yeah, we're not saying that you have to know every single nuance and every dimension and every little facet of AI in order to be AI literate, which makes me think that it's somewhat achievable, would you say, for most people?
I would say absolutely. For example, I'm a LinkedIn Learn professor, and I did a course on causal AI primer. Probably a lot of people don't know about causal AI, but it's actually a really interesting field, and by no means am I an expert on it. That's why I did the primer. But if you think that you know everything about AI, then you're sadly mistaken.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about why does this matter? Like, companies spend a good bit of funds trying to bring their workforce up and become more AI literate, and people spend hours and hours trying to become more AI literate. Why? What's the point? Why does this even matter? Aren't the tools and the technologies and the platforms just going to do it all for us? Why does it matter so much?
Well, it matters on many levels. At the first level, in my mind, everyone needs to have the same understanding of what they're talking about. So if you don't have that same understanding and everyone is literate, then you have a problem in communication within the organization. Number two, if you don't have that training and understanding, what I have seen, not only with AI, but with any other technology, people are going to resist change. And you're going to have, a lot of resistance to change. Okay, if we don't have the same understanding of this technology, what it could do, how can you drive innovation within a company? You're not going to be able to drive innovation if we don't understand what is it that we're talking about. A fourth one, which is really, really important, is understanding those concepts will let people also trust those systems about what they can do and cannot do, and be able to interact with them. So before we jump to, we want to interact with those systems, you have to cover all of this. And on top of it, if we understand what AI is and cannot do, there are ethical implications, correct, on especially what you hear about the system, perhaps with hallucinations, with bias and various other things. You need to get that same understanding so you can develop that trust and you develop the data governance and other things. Literacy is important. You can't jump, we're going to go use it, and then no one understands what's happening around the organization. And, I don't know, maybe I'm picking up, procurement doesn't understand what is AI and why someone wants to push this system. Finance has an issue, technology, you can't do that. So actually one of the things, like I said, that I'm being faced with clients that I'm consulting is first, what is AI? So that's what I mentioned earlier in my first response. And second, they realize they're not even set up to do AI, and in particular from a legal and ethical perspective. So I'm actually doing a lot of AI governance, work for them before we start talking about business cases, POCs, implementations, etc. So that's my answer. It's actually at many levels, but literacy has to be first.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in there, but
I'm sorry.
you mentioned, no, that's great. You mentioned innovation, you mentioned ethics, you
Trust.
mentioned trust.
And
you
one
mentioned-
language.
Yes, and having a single language, which makes you more effective. It sounds like you're saying it's kind of trying to build a house on sand.
Yeah.
You got to have a really good foundation
Yes.
before you can really be effective. Robert, you were going to say?
Yeah. How many of you use computers at work? Raise your hand. Okay. And you laugh. There was a time that people didn't use computers at work. How many of you think that the computers help you to do your job better? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, yeah. Now, think about if you were competing with a company that didn't have computers. Would you crush that company? Would you be able to dominate that field? Well, that's what AI is all about. If you replace computers with AI, that then kind of brings it home. Because if you're at a company or you're functioning without using AI, then you're functioning like you're not using a computer.
I love this example. Do you mind me jumping in? Let me
Yeah,
tell
go
you
ahead. I do too.
I was in the airline industry for a while after I left aerospace engineering. And there is a very famous story in the airline industry is that when American Airlines figured out how to use revenue management after deregulation. So revenue management, for those who don't know what it is, it's the science of designing inventory management, selling the right inventory at the right time, at the right price for the right customer. So they figured out after deregulation, we have all this data in the mainframe and we can do booking profiles and segmentation and forecasting and optimization, which is AI, a different kind of AI. People Express, I don't know if it's a story in the book that People Express went out of business, but one good reason, maybe a main reason why People Express went out of business, because back to your example, they decided it was a low-cost carrier, we don't need forecasting, we don't need optimization, we're gonna fill up on cheap passengers. And they were crushed. Why were they crushed? With the intelligence, American held out seats for high-paying passengers later. People Express was filling up on cheap passengers that could not even cover its low cost. This business case became a standard business case taught at business school in MBA programs, which really goes back to Robert's example. Do you want to have a company with computer or you want to have a company without computer? I'm going to tell you, an airline with revenue management or without revenue management. The CEO of People Express, at some point after the company shut down, made an interview or a speech saying basically, I will never run an airline without revenue management. I will never run an airline without analytics, basically what he's saying. Forecasting, optimization, different kind of AI, not generative AI. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, next time you fly, there's almost never an empty seat next to you. You can blame Wes, CH, 2 A's, 1 R. That's Wes, CH, 2 A's, 1 R.
I'll ask your forgiveness after the start.
But the airlines love them. So the notion of, I took a typing class in high school, y'all. I mean, I know I'm dating myself here, but can you imagine not using computers at work? Can you imagine not using a keyboard? Can you imagine, it's unimaginable. In the same way, to y'all's point, it's going to be unimaginable not to have AI. And in order to integrate AI, you got to have the AI literacy in your organization to know what it is, how to use it, how can you best benefit from it, how can it be used as a strategic advantage like revenue management, those sorts of things. So there are many reasons why it matters, including those sorts of things, as well as innovation, the ethical side, all that. So you really can't make progress and build a big house without having some level of AI literacy. So everybody kind of wants it. It's important. But how can we improve it? There are going to be some people in the organization that are quick to grab it, and other people that are less. How do you go about improving AI literacy within an organization?
I think there are two things that you want to do. The first thing is stop talking about AI sort of as this ubiquitous thing that it's going to save the world and it's just one thing. You want to start by actually looking at some aspects of AI, for instance, generative AI. Just start ChatGPT. How can I use that to make my life better? It's interesting. I love these kind of conferences because I always learn so much. I was at a talk yesterday, and they started talking. They showed Gemini Advanced Research, and I was blown away because I'm in the AI field, but I didn't know about that because things are moving so fast. And what it does is it's the research end of Gemini where it allows you to, one, query information on the web and integrate that information in more of a task manner, where you can actually say, hey, I want you to gather information about this and do some stuff with it and that type of thing. And I find it fascinating, and I'm going to play with it as soon as I get a little bit of time. But for AI literacy, talk with people, understand that you don't know everything, and be open and vulnerable to be in front of somebody and say, I don't know what you're talking about. Please tell me more. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that you don't have to boil the whole ocean, as they say. You can start small. And it could even be, hey, I've got a buddy that I'm going to work with, and we're going to meet once a week or once a month to talk about AI and where it's going. Or we're going to start a user group in my company to start to look at ways in which we can use AI. And also take into account the legal and ethical and all those issues that you're being faced with. And you could start to look at what other people are doing for those issues too.
Yeah. So some of the things that you can do to improve, if I'm hearing you right, number one, it's AI. It's not AI. Don't make it so mysterious and like it's this big thing. It's business as usual, right? And so treat it that way. Secondly, don't be afraid to ask for help and collaborate with people. Come to conferences like this. There are so many resources available. You can watch videos from Andrew Ng. I mean, there are tons of things you can do and read, lots of resources. And then thirdly, find kind of a project, a little pet project, if you will, and just try to do one small thing leveraging AI. Those are all great examples of how to improve AI literacy.
I mean, the only thing that I will add is like here in the conference, not everyone is technical. So I'm going to consider the technical people like the IT, the engineers, but the non-technical, I'm going to consider the executives. So, but also within the company, there should be a level of understanding by the executive, conceptual. We're not asking them to become expert in technology. That's needed because at the end of the day, it's the executives that drive and correct the business decision within the organization. So the way I go about when I walk into a company, everyone should have the same language, including the executives. There is a level that everyone can talk about, and there is a deeper technical level, which is obviously with the people that needs maybe to update their skill set, learn about this, learn about that, and we put the training programs. But that's a continuous thing. This shouldn't be a one-time and we're done, because like Robert just said, this is evolving so fast, and I'm continuing to be, tasked. Can you train on this? Can you explain this? Can you come back for this, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to take a slight rabbit hole here. We'll
Please.
come right back. But you bring up a great point. So a colleague of mine was chief analytics officer at a major financial institution, and he left because he said his boss, the CIO, refused to embrace anything new. Like he was not AI literate at all. And meanwhile, the CAO is trying really hard to integrate new things, advance the bank, help them out. And he got so frustrated, he just left. Does AI literacy absolutely have to come from the top, or you're doomed, or is there a way to kind of ground up this sort of movement? What do you think?
I mean, there are two levels. I mean, I always, whenever we work with people, I don't think I have all the ideas. I don't think my ego is that big. So, if people working with me or, within the organization, I always encourage people to bring the ideas up. So if people are saying there is AI opportunity and I'm an executive who knows nothing about AI, I better be curious. Whoever was a CFO shouldn't be in that position because that's actually bringing for a CFO. I'm surprised, an opportunity for automation, for revenue generation. So, a bit surprising. And I know for a fact that I'm dealing actually with quite a bit of CFOs because one of the things they're seeing, in particular with generative AI, an immediate ability to cut costs, but automating some of the processes that are very manual today and free up their employees to do other things, really giving them bandwidth. It's not really about quote unquote firing people, whatever, etc. So back to what you said, the reason I was mentioning the executive, because they need to have an understanding, correct, of what is it that they're talking about, etc. And I'm seeing that sometimes is lacking, like with the example that I just gave at the beginning that, we've never done the AI. And then you look, it's like, you've been doing machine learning and personalization using, this data. I didn't know that was one kind of, that's a different kind. That's why I like, sometimes to mention a new capability of AI is generative AI. We're just adding it to all the other stuff.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I've got another question for you. I love to ask questions, so.
I'm going to call them Robert's polling.
Yeah. How many of you feel a little bit afraid of being left behind?
Oh, totally.
Yeah. Look around. A lot of people feel that way. I would say release that feeling and replace it with being excited about learning all the new stuff. And one of the ways in which you could do that is that you could actually use ChatGPT to say, this is what I do. What are some of the AI things that I want to learn about? What are some of the AI things I want to know about? I have found ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude, or whichever your LLM choice is, to be able to be a thought leader and to help me when I feel like I need to know more about something, or I feel lost, or I feel like, hey, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So if you embrace that this is changing very fast, and if you embrace that you're not going to know everything, the reason I brought up causal AI is because it's a field that not many people are talking about. And the reason that I know about it is because I thought about, hey, I would like to start to understand the causality of things that are happening. And so I was talking with my business partner, and we were talking about, what's a good way of modeling that? And so did some research on it and found it fascinating, and then got an opportunity to do a course on it. And that was because I know I don't know everything, and I embraced looking at a problem that I had, looking at what kind of solutions existed for that, and then looking at the solution that I wanted to investigate. And it just happened to be AI. A lot of people that you hear are like, okay, we got to bring AI into our company. And that, to me, is so backwards. Yeah. What you want to do is bring solutions into your company.
Analytics teams didn't exist for a long time, and then all of a sudden analytics teams came about. Yeah. And now, are they in the same way, are we going to have a bunch of AI teams?
I just drafted an article about that question for Forbes. To get my opinion. It hasn't been published yet, but let me tell you the essence of it. I don't think, because the question was, should we create AI teams separate from analytics team? I don't think so. Some of them maybe are, people, industrial engineer, very good at optimization. You just need to add people that are very good at generative AI and large language model and things like that. Because the argument was, companies now, I have the chief analytics officer, I need the chief AI officer. It's like, oh my God, no, it's the same. But it goes back about really education and demystifying that this is still the same organization. I would say AI folks are within the team, whether you want to keep it called the analytics team or whether you want to call it the AI team, that's fine, one or the other, because analytics or AI goes literally across the whole spectrum.
Yeah. I would actually answer that a little bit differently, and that's why we're up here. I would say that that's not a technical question. It's more of how do people want to manage their company, and how do people want to manage their personnel. So I could see a company that would have an AI team and an analytical team and keep those separate. And I could also see a company that will keep them together. So I think that when you start to look at how people are managed at a company, then it gets to be a little bit more gray, and it's not a technical issue, it's also a political issue, it's a company issue, it's a
Leadership issue.
and all of those kinds
Yeah,
of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a major CPG headquartered in Atlanta that has a separate AI team. And what they're finding is it's a struggle. And they wish that, like, they're when they set it up, they said, oh, well, we'll just make sure we collaborate really close. It never happens. You have to have the same boss. But let's definitely talk more about those kinds of things in the Q&A. But to circle back to the leadership question and how to improve the literacy, I spoke to somebody who's a CFO now at a company that makes these giant fences for commercial reasons. And he's a former student of mine, I think from South Carolina. And as CFO, he's saying, I have got to improve the AI literacy at my company. And so I think that's interesting because you guys were, especially Wes, I think you were talking about CFO in particular. But I think it also requires a certain level of vulnerability. Like this is a chief officer that is coming forward and admitting that he doesn't have enough AI literacy himself, and how can I improve that? And so talking about things that make this whole AI literacy journey very challenging, I would put that in the list. That one of the things that makes it challenging is sometimes it's harder if it doesn't come from the top. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it requires a certain level of maybe vulnerability to say, well, maybe I don't know everything. The difference between humans and machines is that machines have objective functions. Like this is what I'm trying to optimize or maximize, and these are my constraints or my limitations, whereas humans know that they don't know everything, and so they're constantly evaluating a scenario. What are some other things that make AI literacy so stinking challenging?
Fear. Mm-hmm. I find, and I like using examples in my life because I know those and I'm close to them. I find that for me, sometimes I talk myself out of doing things because I think they're going to be more difficult and they're going to take more time. And then sometimes when I do them, it's like, oh, that's all it is? And so if you have something that you want to learn, then take the first step. And then once you get into it, then you might see that, oh, okay, this is going to take some time. But if you don't do it, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
But tell me more about fear, though. When you say, because there's a lot of ways you can dissect fear, and I know Wes is itching to say something too. So unpack fear just a little.
Well, I'm going to unpack it from my life. So one of the things that I found out just 2 days ago is that it's really easy. I'm a programmer, so it's really easy to create a Chrome extension. It's something I never thought of or anything like that, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to integrate ChatGPT with Google Sheets. And so I asked ChatGPT, how do I integrate you with Google Sheets? And ChatGPT said, oh, you can create this Chrome extension and here's the code. And as I looked at the code, I was like, oh, wow, I could have been doing this all along. So I didn't even consider it because I was scared that it was just going to take too much of my time and I wouldn't be able to, I have other things that I've got to do. So one fear is the fear that it's going to take too long.
Yeah.
I'll let you.
Well, I'm going to use fear as a positive, so let me tell you how.
Oh, no.
There you go.
I was teaching a course a few years ago at Southern Methodist University at SMU. So I live in Dallas, Texas, part-timer. Every now and then they call me. And I'm teaching this graduate class about data and analytics. And, there was a question from the students around that. And I said, my experience about organizations, it's they either work by what I call the 3 Fs, facts, faith, or fear. It's wonderful if you want rational organization that works by facts. Very rare. I hate to say, very, very rare. Faith, actually, you do find organizations that work by faith culture. What I mean by that they have a leader who is driving with the message that they believe, trust, not necessarily understanding all detail, but they're willing to follow him or her. I've seen that too. But the one actually that works the most is actually fear. So how does fear work? if we don't do this, we're out of business. If we don't get computers, we're out of work. So back to his example, and what I have seen is actually when you put in front of leadership and even the employees that if we don't do this, we're not gonna stay in business. We're not, and the irony, fear when you turn it about what it could mean if we don't do something becomes actually a positive. And I've seen this all over my career, which was very surprising for the students that actually fear was the one that's gonna work the most. If you take it and use the fear that you're hearing from people and you repositioned it on a positive, and that's actually what I have been, you know what, that's fine. I understand you're fearful. Let me tell you how we're gonna change fearful to action. Wow, you believe in faith and you trust your leadership, great. But facts, which was always my hope as a, hopefully a semi-rational person, very few, very, very few.
Is that right? So it was facts, faith,
and fear. Yeah.
So leading by facts, leading by faith,
and leading by
but
fear.
the strongest one is fear. So it
That's
can
what I've
be
seen.
seen as a positive. Well, to give another...
Wait,
go
I
ahead,
just
go
got to
ahead.
say something. For all of you that are managers in here, don't use fear as a mechanism
We're not saying
for
that.
moving people forward.
Don't use what was said.
I know.
Be careful.
No, I'm just saying, I can see a manager going like, okay.
Guess what I learned?
We have a question.
Hold on one second. I'll get you in just a second, I promise. So the fact, fear, or fact, faith, and fear, to give an example of the other side of fear, too, that
Yeah, I turned it to a
hinders-
positive. I didn't
Right,
leave it as
there could be a positive. You're looking at it by
had to
industry.
turn it.
Right, that's right.
It was good.
Flip the coin.
So there's a company, they produce something that is kind of hard to explain, but let me just say that if you touch plastics or any kind of durable good, there's a 70% chance you're interacting with this company. They're B2B, you've probably never heard of them. There are only 5 in the world that produce this product that goes to other products. And the guy that I was talking to, everybody there pretty much is a chemical engineer PhD. And he was as well. And he was the closest thing they had to the lead of analytics. And what he was doing was he was producing reports, y'all, PDF reports. And he would put them in your inbox. And so you would specify what kind of data and metrics you want to see every month. And that's what he would do. And I'm like, dude, please let me help you. Please, I'm begging for you to let me help you with something that's dynamic, that incites curiosity, that is, all those things. Like, just come on, man, it's a dashboard. It's like, don't be scared. And he said, my boss told me a while back that as long as you keep running these great reports, you're always going to have a secure job. And so his fear was to move outside of what he was doing where he knew he had a thumbs up. Well, as it turns out, his boss hired an intern to build out their business intelligence, and now it's like all over the company, and he's getting all the glory. So now he's listening, and now I'm saying, like, dude, you got to get into AI, and he's listening. So yeah, that fear can go both ways for sure. Anything else we want to add about what makes AI literacy so challenging? We talked about, we didn't really say change management. I know that that's a big one too.
Yeah, there's the other thing that makes it, there are 2 other things that make it difficult. One is the speed at which it's moving. I mean, you look up and there's some new, not just discovery, but some new discovery that can change the world. And then the second thing is bad data. Companies are littered with data that needs to be cleaned. And yeah, a lot of people are shaking their heads, yes. And so that is one of the biggest challenges, is to just get the data in a usable form so that you can start to do some data science on it.
Yeah, so people that don't have good data might say, well, our data's not any good. I'm not even going to try. Yeah, that's a good point.
Or they say, our data's bad, and it's going to cost $10 million to clean it up and get it in one spot so that we can start to even make some sense of it.
Well, it's time to spend that $10 million.
I will help you to find out who you need to spend it with.
That's right.
I know a bunch of people that.
And that kind of brings us as a good bridge to barriers. Like, what are some of the things that we have to overcome in order to really become AI literate? And it sounds like one of them is you have to invest big. I mean, you can't expect this to be done overnight and for nothing sometimes, right? Not always?
I think that you can start making small changes very easily and prove out what you're doing. And I think you should. I don't think you should say, okay, our first foray into this is going to be a $10 million or $100 billion contract. I think you should say, what is a slice of something that I can apply this technique to that will give me a return on investment, and specify that return on investment and specify what it is that you're trying to achieve, what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and go from there.
I mean, actually, I'm just going to build on what he said, because that's actually the approach that I'm taking when I go talk to companies.
He's saying I'm right.
Yes, yes. So what I'm doing is actually look at current workflows and processes and identify those where they can use generative AI. So that's a small change relatively, because you didn't disrupt their process. You just made it much more efficient. Then people are more open to say, oh, what could we do which is bigger? We're ready now to the bigger prize. And because people don't like to be disrupted. Yeah, everyone says, yeah, I'm ready for change and disruption. Very few companies are really ready for disruption and change if they have the right leadership. But typically that approach works best. And then very quickly they realize, okay, we're good at this. We learned. I want to do the bigger ROI. So that's the approach that I'm taking.
Yeah, I mean, even starting with a school project, when I was a full-time professor at Georgia Tech and running the analytics center, we were constantly bringing in what we called executive council members. And Wes, you were one of them when you were at Turner, Time Warner. And we would ask them, like, okay, we got to get the right size kind of project and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them would say, oh, but our data's terrible. Okay, I got that. Like, y'all probably need to talk about how to improve that. But just give me one decent data set to start with, and we can do this one project. And then exactly like you're saying, then they say, oh, well, that was really informative. What else can we do? So kind of start small. Go ahead. What are some other barriers?
I was going to say, and you can even start small in your life too.
Yes.
What I would recommend is, how many people have hobbies that they like doing? Okay. What are some of the hobbies that people have? Just yell them out.
Pickleball.
Photography, pickleball, skateboarding, jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow.
Cars. All of those things can be enhanced by a project. You already like this. So pick something, a project like, okay, I want to actually improve my skateboarding. Go to GPT or Gemini and say, how can I improve my skateboarding? This is where I am. What are some other techniques that I can use? Or I want to know more about cars. I have this specific car in mind, and I might want to collect data on that car and start to do a dashboard or a data analytics project on that. Or photography, I might want to use generative AI to start mixing pictures together, or all sorts of things. I mean, you already have things that you are doing that you like doing. Figure out how to use this new technology to enhance that, to make it better, to make it grow. One of the things I was just thinking about up here is that, I'm single and I have to go and find food. I do have a girlfriend, but I got to say that she told me that I'd hit to say, boy, you guys are a tough crowd. These are golden here. But, I thought about that I could actually use ChatGPT to help me to, build a menu for me. We were, my girlfriend and I were talking about, hey, let's put together a daily menu. And I was just like, hey, let's do that. And let's figure out that. And we could talk about, this is our nutrition needs, and this is what we're trying to accomplish, and all of those things. Just, I would say that from an individual standpoint, starting to use this technology to enhance your life will have it spill over in how you can start to use it to enhance your work life. So go and just do it.
Yeah, and if you need a place to get started, there's another possibility. I'll get you second. There's another possibility, which is number one, look at your personal life and ways to leverage AI there. But secondly, you can also do things for nonprofits. And there are lots of outlets. If you're in New York, or even if you're not, you can use an organization called Data Kind, and they partner you with nonprofits. There's also an organization through Informs, faded, but Informs, and it's called Pro Bono Analytics, and they combine you with a nonprofit. And so you can leverage AI for a project with a nonprofit, or if you have your favorite nonprofit, go to them and say, okay, I enjoy volunteering with you and scooping up the soup and putting it in the bowl, but I feel like I can do professional-based volunteerism and impact and improve and help people even broader and more. So that's a second path, is your own personal interest, but also the nonprofit space can benefit tremendously because a lot of times they don't have the resources that are needed. Are there other suggestions for overcoming barriers?
I just want to make an offer to people. The first Tuesday of every month, I forgot the time, it's like 7 to 8 Eastern Standard Time, I just get on Zoom and answer questions and have conversations with whomever shows up. I would say I'd love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn, and on my LinkedIn profile, there's a place where you can join and you just stop by, and if you have questions about, hey, how do I get started with AI? Or, hey, I'm working on this project and I got this going, just come on or send me a message through LinkedIn. I love to help people. We're all teachers up here. We all want to see people to reach their potential. So, yeah. So I just want to throw that out.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's a great offer. How do we know we succeeded? You talked about early on, I think at the very beginning of this panel, Robert, you talked about how people are just talking about AI and they feel comfortable, and that's how you know that you're AI literate. Are there other ways that you know that you've succeeded with AI literacy? How do those manifest itself?
I mean, engagement of the employees, the company, the metrics that you're seeing, asking for more AI innovation, etc. I mean, these are the metrics. When you see still resistant to change, there is no a single language across, there isn't really any innovation, then obviously you're not doing the right thing. It will be very evident with the things that you're seeing around the company, engagement of employees, success of metrics that the company tracks using AI, a whole roadmap that is circulated and people are excited about, for the most part, I hope at least.
And this is the correlation does not equal causation conversation, real quick. And that we're not saying just throw a bunch of AI in there and you will automatically be successful, right?
Correct.
It's got to be strategic and
Of
you've got to be
course,
solving, what's the solution?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I would say that the ultimate thing that companies want to know about is this successful or not is it changing the bottom line?
Yeah.
So if you're doing a bunch of AI and there's no return on investment, then one, I think you're doing it wrong. But two, the company's not going to continue to put money into something that's not going to give you a return on investment. So if you're in a company situation, and even in a personal situation, because the return on investment comes in many forms. Personally, a return on investment is, I'm getting what I want, I'm succeeding with what I'm doing. But from a company standpoint, you want to start to think about, how does this relate to the bottom line? How does this relate to the value of the company? And if you do that, then you start to not only become AI literate, but you become an AI force in the company.
So don't do AI for AI's sake.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I hear. I hear people, they come to me and say, I just need to do anything with generative AI. I have to. I'm like, why?
Because everybody else is.
Because everybody else is, and it increases their stock price. Like, these are all the wrong reasons, really. And we talked a little bit about advice that you give throughout. So we'll just jump straight to the future. Dr. Chaar, do you want to talk a little bit about will you read that quote for us and then talk a little bit about it? That's a good quote.
Yeah, this is a quote from my book where I finished the book. That was like the paragraph before the last one, and I'll give context in a moment after I guess I read it. So we will work together, vote together with our data, and shape the future of AI together, knowing that our collective data vote guides us toward the future where technology serves humanity and not where humanity serves technology. The reason I picked this quote when I was writing my book is because this fear discussion that came about, this resistance, etc., it's because also there is a conversation going in the country, something you read in the news, X billionaire said something about robots taking over AI, ending the humanity. And the purpose of the book to say, we honestly don't have a vote of where technology is taking us. We don't. And when you realize actually that all those companies and the revenue they make is actually driven by your personal data. Your personal data is actually your digital DNA. And no one should own your digital DNA except each one of us, because that involves our privacy, and when we lose our privacy, we lose our freedom. So that's really, and I put the solution in the book. I'm not going to talk about it right now. The reason I put this, because any technology could lead us to things we don't want, and AI could be one of them. And we could also take us where we want it to take. And I'm afraid, personally, knowing the experience with we've seen before with the last evolution, with blow up of data, with all those wonderful tech companies, is that they didn't keep their word about anything. You're not, it's businesses run by the bottom line, how they protect your data, and etc. But that data, again, is still what's driving AI. They're going to need your data. I don't know how many of you know, out of our $25 trillion economy, how much of it is based on your personal data? And I'm not talking, this is before AI even. Anyone can take a guess?
Out of 25 trillion.
Out of 25 trillion before AI. I'll give you one example, and I'll show you it's actually more than 4 trillion, if not more. The advertising industry alone is $975 billion based on your data. That's 1 trillion, let's call it, rounding, correct? That's for 2025, by the way, or 2024, whatever. CPGs and retailers. I'm not going to double count by saying, oh, they advertise too. No. How is your data used by CPGs and retailers beside the advertising, which we put in this one bucket? Product design, supply chain optimization. Why does your package arrive the next day or same day? Because they predicted with your data, your behavior, to make sure that there's a copy of Wes's book down the street. And you can go pick it up from the UPS store. And you go on by industry. So you have these trillions of dollars, and of course, no one wants to give you back your digital DNA. But if you have your digital DNA, you have your data, you have a say on where AI goes. I'm only going to maybe one last comment. When you hear, the big wigs like, Musk and Bill Gates and, AI is going to kill the world, what they're really trying to say is that one thing that I've known when working for Center for Space Research and Jet Propulsion Lab, when I did navigation, we created population of algorithms. I created populations of algorithms that can talk to each other and autonomously create new algorithms on their own. Autonomously. We've done this for the NASA Mars Pathfinder mission, and we've done it for deep space navigation at NASA's JPL, and they're still using it, by the way, and they're using it now for drones. I've done this more than 20 years ago. What they're simply not saying is the phrase that I like to summarize it. Adaptation is possible in artificial systems. And unless you reclaim your data and you have a data vote, I don't trust 4 or 5 people to make a decision for humanity. Because then, no matter what we fear, it's not about training, and bottom line, this is a bigger question. So I would love for you maybe to keep in mind that you can have a vote in that discussion by owning back your data, and there are ways to own back your data. It starts by honestly having conversations like today.
Yeah, like realizing that your digital DNA is actually benefiting everyone but you. Or other companies, but maybe you're not getting it. Maybe you don't even realize that it's out there and it's making these changes. And I like this quote here where you say that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Robert, you want to talk about the future?
Sure. How many of you in the last year have played a DVD? How many of you have watched streaming? So that was a transition of just one sort of area. We are now, and it happened fairly quickly, because I remember Blockbusters. I used to love Blockbusters. And so AI has created a change in pretty much every area. And I think that that's going to create an economic change and a change of the way that we deal with resources. Because I think that if we keep going along this path, we're going to be able to supply the world with an abundance of things that we might not have to work.
Yep.
I mean, the only reason that we work is because we want to buy something or we want to make it nice for our family. If you have everything you need, then that can change the equation. And so then you're looking at the things that you can do for fun. And it might be still the same thing that you're doing at work, but it might not be. And so I think that as we continue down this path, we might have to really consider what does the economics look like in our society.
We have an innate need or push to quote, work, even if we're just doing piddly. Like we see it as work, and it kind of makes you look like, oh my gosh, that's what I'm doing now, isn't it? You're like, is any of this going to matter? And then for my prediction, I said, we really got to keep a pulse on our cognitive capabilities, our own critical thinking, our brains, and how we leverage them when we come to this human-machine collaboration era. And what I mean by that is, so the kids these days, right? We're always talking about the kids. They would like to push buttons. And pushing buttons and not understanding the black box or even thinking about the black box or knowing what made that result happen, it's a little bit concerning. So I'll give you a quick analogy. When I first started teaching, it was an applied statistics class at Berry College in Rome, Georgia. And the kids did not understand standard deviation. So I made them calculate standard deviation by hand. And they didn't understand why they had to do that when their calculator would just push standard deviation. But the beginning of the semester, or well, back then it was a quarter system, I asked them, what is standard deviation? And nobody understood that it was you're standardly deviating from a mean. Like this is kind of like normally what you deviate from a mean. They didn't get that. So that's why I had to have them do it by hand. I feel that in the future, we're moving into this era of, in the same way the calculator took over manual math, AI has taken over some of our cognitive, our ability to reason and think and critically consider certain decisions. And yes, the human can be in the loop, but are you truly taking advantage of your position in the loop? That's the question, I think, in the future that we're going to ask ourselves.
I love this because if you get people into the conversation and then they can make that data vote in some sense, or where technology, then at least we know people voted and then they decided we're going to take this path or that path. Yes.
Yeah. No. I was making sure he had the mic.
Yeah.
Excellent. So we'll take questions. Go ahead, sir. You're first.
Dr. Wright, first, thank you for chairing this panel. Great comments. What resonated with me was the facts, faith, and fear. But if you operate on all three, that's really powerful because the fear is going to be there. Every for-profit organization, even some of our non-profit organizations, are in a competitive environment. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the point of how do you turn the fear into action.
Yes.
That's how you turn it into a positive. That's good. So I am a technical executive at a mid-sized defense contractor. I'm responsible for developing an AI strategy for our product realization. So I've got a lot of fear of falling behind, but we've put that in action. One of the questions was, as an organization, how do you tailor this? Well, at the executive level, we put together a steering committee. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why there's a lot of fear of engaging is it's so pervasive. HR, contracts, engineering, IT, security, everybody had to be involved in setting our policies. But then also a key thing we did was we started small, medium, and large.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. HR was the first to actually delve into it, but engineering said, "Hey, we're ready to start auto coding." Right. Our engineers, our software developers need to use this to keep up. And so I checked into it as an engineering executive. I said, is it a formal method? Is it verifiable? Are we doing the right checks? And so that was a way to move out and show a success. And once you start showing success, and then it builds on itself, right? And then you start getting employee engagement. So I wanted to share my experience with that, and I really appreciate y'all's comments.
No question, just content. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, sir.
Hey guys, thank you guys for the great talk. The question I'm going to ask is, I hope it doesn't sound like I didn't listen to you guys for the full hour, but it's going to be at a basic level, 2 parts. Just very quickly, is AI, I guess, a synonym or a moniker for automation? First off.
Oh, great question.
Well, let me take the first swing at that. First off, thank you for asking the question. And the second off is that I think that people are trying to say that, but I don't think it is. I think automation is one component, but I think AI can be used as a thought leader. It can be used to help solve problems. It can be used to advance what it is that you're doing, not necessarily automate it, but just give you some more insight in it.
Well, I guess the second part to it, if it was, or if it is, or a component of it is, I guess going to the example of the airlines, if that is what was done with the automation, if that is a component of AI.
It's automation, but there was also intelligence, correct?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
introduced forecasting, optimizations. So basically, it's not like humans were not trying to forecast, but I don't know if you know that. Actually, humans are not very good at forecasting. Actually, mathematical models are way better than that. But I don't want to dig into. But the idea, you introduce automation, but you also introduce intelligence with it. So it's really about automating the things that humans have tended to do and get that off their plate, but also add intelligence component into it. So the question is about the airlines. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I guess, is this a rebrand of all of what we've been doing for the last few years? Because now the term or the name of AI is getting popularized, and it sounds like we've been doing AI for some time now.
Okay, so I think when we're saying here AI, I think people are talking about generative AI.
Correct.
Okay. We've been doing forecasting for a long time. We've been doing descriptive, actually, analytics before that. We've been forecasting after predictive analytics, sometimes it's called. We've been doing prescriptive analytics, which is like really optimization. We've been doing machine learning. We've been whatever, and now we're doing generative AI. This is just an addition to that tool set.
Yeah.
And let me reframe that a little bit too, because I hear this all the time, that people are looking at solutions and not looking at solving problems. AI is a tool in a toolbox to solve problems. Automation might be one means to solving a problem, but it might be that, forget automation, you could just go straight to the end game, and that might be another means. So I want people to, when you think about using technology, don't think about just using that technology, but think about really what problem are you solving, and is that problem worth solving?
Yes.
Billions of dollars are spent on solving problems that aren't worth solving because people don't spend a lot of time up front defining what it is that what problem they're trying to solve, and what does the consequences of that solution really have? What's the return on investment, and is that the return on investment I want to have?
And please catch Wes Chaar and Robert Joseph and myself, Beverly Wright. We're here all day. Thank you so much, and please give a warm hand to the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.